الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد قال تعالى في كتابه المجيد ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وملائكته والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البأس أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون صدق الله العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بآياته وذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بر رؤوف رحيم. Dear brothers and sisters, a very important basic question that we all often ask and need to know in our life generally, but even as we have to make choices on daily basis. To have clarity to this question is fundamental to our success in this life and the life to come. And that question is, what is piety? What is righteousness? What is acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What's valuable? Where should I invest my time and my resources? What issues should I focus on? And what issues should I leave that will make my life, my living worthwhile, acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Where I could be considered amongst the truthfuls, sadiqun, amongst the muttaqun, the pious, the God conscious. This one verse of the Holy Quran that I've recited, and we have talked about it before, but it's so fascinating for me. And it's so profound that I thought I should reflect over it again today with yourselves. And that verse is verse number 177 in Surah Al-Baqarah, the longest surah. One of the longest verses, like Ayatul Kursi is one of the longest verses, so is this verse that I have just recited at the beginning of Khutbah today, known as the verse of righteousness or piety, Ayatul Bir. What is interesting about this verse is that it begins by not saying what is piety, but saying what is not piety. And this is Quranic style often. Lays al-bir. Piety is not. Why? Because many people at the time were discussing, there had been a long drawn discussion about the tahwil al-qibla, the changing of the direction of prayer. As you know, Prophet ﷺ and the Muslim, when they were in Mecca, they used to pray towards Jerusalem. And as they prayed towards Jerusalem, Mecca and Jerusalem, both were to the north of them, so you could satisfy both requirements. But when Prophet ﷺ and Muslims did hijrah and arrived in Madinah al-Munawwara, which is traveling to the north, now Mecca was to the south and Jerusalem was to the north. But first year and a half, Jerusalem remained the Qibla. And Muslims used to pray toward Jerusalem with Kaaba behind them, with the back towards the Kaaba, as it were. And then the Tahwil al-Qibla verse came. And as we know, one afternoon as Prophet ﷺ was traveling somewhere, this verse was revealed, and he turned his face towards Mecca from north to the south. And that ensued a huge discussion, debate. because for Jewish community of Medina, which were partners with Prophet ﷺ, more learned, richer, and so on, they saw in that a thread or disposition of the whole history to which they felt belonged to Jerusalem and so on. But anyway, let's park that debate. I was going to talk about what is righteousness, what is not righteousness. But very interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins this verse explaining righteousness by saying, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. Piety is not turning of your faces towards the east or towards the west. It's a side issue. And then it brings to my mind many issues that occupy our attention. You know, when it says wujuhakum wajh, your face towards, it's not just in the sense of qibla, but in the sense of attention, what is important. You face, if somebody is important, you face towards that person. Not important, you ignore to the side. The issues which we face, what are we facing in life? And qibla became important thing. But I think in saying this, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell us that there are these rituals which are important. And it comes to my mind the debate we had about moon sighting when Ramadan came, and then Eid al-Fitr came, and all the differences about the discussions which we engage. Many discussions about, of course, timing of iftar in Ramadan, and then moving on within the community, the zabiha, non-zabiha debates, and many other issues that we discuss. They're all important. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also indicating here as to what is, tells us what is piety. وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرِّ, but piety is. Bir, the word used is bir. Now this is also very interesting and fascinating. The word used for And here, you know, when we are on a secure, vast land, we feel safe, we feel peaceful, we feel secure and content, and tranquil, and happy, as opposed to when we are in the middle of the sea, with waves all around us and home nowhere to be seen. So it is a secure place. So piety is a state, a spiritual state. Actions of piety develop in a spiritual state which is tranquil, at peace, and happy and content. That's what piety is. And so beautifully in Arabic language, the word used for bir comes from barara, which means a vast dry land or forest. But what is piety then? 5 things very quickly I think this verse talks about. First is faith. وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ, the piety is to believe in Allah, آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ. The 5 articles of faith have been mentioned. To believe in Allah and in the last day, day of judgment, to believe in angels, books, and the messengers. The last 3 are to do with the institution of prophethood, from where we draw the ethics of righteousness and what is right and what is wrong, the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to send us, which He sent to humanity through various prophets from the day of creation till the last prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So faith and iman is conviction, it is hope, it is aspiration, it is a qibla, it's a focus, it is a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's realizing that right and wrong come from Him. It comes from Him through prophets, and we're accountable how we live our life. So that is the first place in terms of our aqidah we have to be in, secure. But what would you expect to be mentioned after that? in a verse of piety, what is the next biggest thing that would come to our mind? The next biggest thing in this verse is وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ وَالسَّائِلِينَ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ. And they spend the wealth, out of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in whom we believe. Also, in some places, it can also be understood, despite of our love of this wealth, we spend it. Ala hubbihi, despite our love for it, we spend it. We spend it amongst whom? It's not even just spend it. 6 categories have been mentioned in detail. In other words, giving us an idea that as Muslims, as believers, we are really very intense in looking at needs of humanity around. Who are the people who may be in need of our help, of our wealth, of our time, of our attention? Ala zabil qurba, amongst the near of kin, the relatives. Amongst relatives, somebody who might need help, some young person, some elderly person. Wal yatama, the orphans, people who do not have the protection of parents, of providers, of carers, who are the yatama. Wal masakin, not related to us, not yatim, but helpless, poor. Wabna sabil, people who are travelers, who are suddenly find themselves in a place where they don't have that protection, job maybe, employment, unemployed. Wabna sabil, wasailin, and people who come and ask you from nowhere, with no relationship with them, but they make an appeal to you that, we need help. Wafir riqab, and who are in bondage. In those days, of course, people in bondage were the slaves. But bondage, someone who has lost the ability and control of their lives. Could be refugees, could be people who are legally bonded, could be prisoners and others. Again, I find it fascinating in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator and master, has to go to such length to highlight all the 6 categories. Indicating piety is that socially we are active in making contribution to wherever we see pockets of need, people who are in need. That's what piety is. Not focus in debating endlessly, thinking it's a religious thing to do, on minor issues that engage our attention when it comes to religion, whilst we ignore people who are in need. And then comes after that, وَقَامَ الصَّلَاةُ وَآتَى الزَّكَاةَ. Interesting, isn't it? After that comes that the established prayer. It's not after believing in Allah, 5 pillars. But after believing in Allah, being attentive to the needs of the people, and then establish prayer, وَقَامَ الصَّلَاةُ وَآتَى الزَّكَاةَ. And zakat is mentioned additionally here. آتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, and then comes the zakat, which is also shifting of the wealth from the rich to the poor. This is mentioned. وَالْمُوفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ إِذَا عَهَدُوا. And they fulfill the promises they make. We all live our lives through various contracts and promises that we make with people. People at home, people outside home, our employer, people with whom we trade, we sell goods, we buy goods, and so on and so forth. So many promises we sign our names on, that they fulfill their promises. That's how Islam develops. A responsible community and society which is at peace. وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. And 5th and final is that they are sabirin, steadfast, in times of distress, affliction, in times of suffering, and when they are in times of conflict. And all these occasions could be ill health, could be loss of wealth, loss of relatives, individuals, political turmoil. In all of these, they are steadfast on their principles. They do what is the right thing to do. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ. They are who are truthful in their claim to be Muslims. And they are the ones who are pious and God conscious. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to understand what really matters what is real piety in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which He has explained in one of the longest verses. 3.5 times the size of Surah Al-Asr, this Ayatul Bir. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to reflect over these things and become attentive, turn our wajh, our faces towards these major duties and responsibilities, and try to improve ourselves in these matters, because that's what would, inshallah, enable us to achieve our success in this life and in the hereafter. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم. قال تعالى في كتابه المجيد: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا نبينا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا نبينا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد